This is an interview with Cealie Alston Davis for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project. I'm Dr. Horace Huntley. We're presently downtown at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is March 10th, 1997. Ms. Davis, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and sit and talk.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes. Just want to start by asking you about your family. Were your parents, your mother and father, were they from Birmingham?
No, they were from Linden, Alabama.
Okay.
It's in Marengo County,
Mm-hmm.
and they moved here, I think, when about 1937 or 8, something like that. Because I have an older brother who was born in it's outside of
Outside of Linden.
no, he was born in I can't think of it. It's Agma. That's where it is. Yeah. And then after they left Agma, then they moved to Birmingham. And he was a coal miner.
Your father was a coal miner. Okay. What did he do in Linden, Agma?
I really don't know. Probably farming.
Yeah.
Yeah, his family.
Did they own land?
They own land. My mother and my dad's family own land. They have an area in Linden called the Steel Hill. That's my mom's maiden name, and the whole area, they own that whole area.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So then they moved to Birmingham, and you were born here.
I was born in Birmingham.
Yeah. Right. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
There were 8 of us. Mm-hmm.
And where were you? Were you the?
I was the 7th. Well, I have a twin brother, and
okay.
I was 7th. He was born. He's 6. I'm 7.
Oh, okay.
And I have another younger brother who was 8.
Oh.
Like my family, my mom had like 2 separate families.
Mm-hmm.
First, she had her first 3 children, and they were all born in Linden, around that area. And then she waited 10 years, and then she had my brother who was born in Agma.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had my sister who's about 6 years older than I am. Then she had my baby brother. So we're, long line of children, but just, far apart.
Right, right. Now, how did your mother go? Did she finish high school? Or how much
she went to the 8th grade.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And your father?
Mom and dad went only to the 8th grade.
Did she work outside the home?
She did not work. She was a housewife, and my dad just did the working.
And he was a coal miner.
He was a coal miner.
Do you know if he was a member of the union?
I don't know. I know they used to lay off a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he changed jobs and he started working for the Park and Recreation Board of Homewood. And he was a custodian there, and he took care of the park area. And that's where I really remember him working.
So he came out of the mines and took that
right,
job.
and then he had an illness, I think, that caused him to have to come out of the mines. Right.
Where did you start first grade?
I started first grade at Council Elementary.
Yeah.
And,
what was that like? Do you remember?
I remember the experience that I had with Council was that I remember we walked to school, and I had a puppy that I had just gotten, and he followed me to school. I guess it must have been right after I first started, and a lady hit him and killed him, and that was very tragic for me. I've always enjoyed school, so I mean, it was a happy experience. Other than that, my twin brother and I were in the same class.
Same class all the way through school?
No, up until the 6th grade. And
well, what was that like, having your brother right there with you?
well, I did most of the work and he did most of the copy. But it was fun. I mean, we experienced the same things, but it was, enjoyable having, somebody else.
Right. So you lived in the Inslee community?
We lived in Inslee, up until the 3rd grade.
And then where did you go?
And then we moved to Titusville.
Okay.
And then we lived in Titusville throughout the rest of my life.
What was it like growing up in Tourisville?
Pleasant. I went to Washington Elementary School and started there in the 3rd grade, and I enjoyed it. You know, everybody around you were in the same predicament, you know, the same conditions, you know, so you really didn't know any different, you know. You just, you know, I had a happy childhood. My parents were very nurturing and caring, and I don't remember wanting anything or needing anything that I didn't get. So it was a happy experience for me.
How far did you live from Washington?
I lived in Loveland's Village, which was, I guess maybe a mile and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But we walked to school, and those were happy experiences. I mean, even when I went to high school, we walked. We enjoyed it. I mean, we could have ridden a bus, but it was just happy to walk. You with your friends, you talked, and it was really a fun time.
Right. So you left Washington and went to Ullman.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I graduated from Ullman. Ullman, I was in the choir and cheerleader and the band for a while, and it was a happy experience.
So you were very active in extracurricular activities.
Right. And my twin brother was a football and track person.
Were you still doing the work and he was still copying?
No, because we got separated in 6th grade. Mrs. Macmillan, who was our teacher at that time, he didn't do well and he failed. And we were separated and I went on. So I was like, at that time we had split years. So I was like just a half a year ahead of him, not a whole year. We had, they called it first year, second, something like that. It was junior and senior, that's what it was.
Right.
I was, so I was just a half a year ahead of him. He didn't fail the whole grade. And at that time, I guess she could see that, he needed that. And after that, he started, he did, and he went on to college. He's a assistant principal at Rome High School now. So, I mean, it was better for him.
Right. What do you remember most about Ullman?
Dr. Bell, who was very dynamic. I really loved him. I really adored him because, most of the kids feared him, but I didn't. He was authoritative and his voice, all he had to do was speak, and he got respect. And the teachers there, Mrs. Wolfoff was one of my teachers at Ullman, and it was an enjoyable time. I did a lot of things, and like I said, I was a school person, so I enjoyed going to school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. At Ullman in 1962, that's when you graduated in 62.
I graduated 62 January.
On January of 62. Okay. So by the time the selective buying campaign started, you were out of school then. That happened in 62, Miles College students and all that.
Right.
The next year then was the year, of course, when the demonstration started.
Right.
And you were a student at Miles.
Right, I was a freshman at Miles.
What was the transition like from high school to college?
Well, at that time, I walked to school. I would catch the bus. I didn't have a car. And my girlfriend and we had gone through high school together, and we started college, and we would still do the same kinds of things. So it was not different for me because I lived at home. I think it would have been different if I had lived on campus, but it was just basically going to school. I participated in activities there, but it was not like if you lived on campus. And that's the only thing that I regret. My brother did get to go off to school.
Right.
He went to Florida A&M on a scholarship, and I, with my parents, I couldn't afford to send both of us away, so I did.
So you lived on campus the entire time that you were at Miles?
No, I lived at home.
I mean at home.
Right, I lived at home. Right.
Okay.
How did you get involved in the movement?
I would attend the mass movement meetings at New Pilgrim and 16th Street, and I sang for a while with the choir, you know, and just hearing about it and attending the meetings.
So you attended the mass meetings.
Right.
How would you describe a mass meeting?
I think it was a spiritual affair where everybody was jubilant, you know, reassuring, and sort of like being in church. You know, we sang songs and prayed and clapped, and it was a unity. You know, a togetherness, really, and you felt really involved and really a part of it.
Were there other members of your family that were involved?
No, not really. Just my friends.
Okay. And were there many of your friends from
Not a
high school?
whole lot. No, I just remember Annie, who the girl that I talked about, that we'd gone to high school together, and maybe 2 or 3 others, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot.
Now, do you remember your first demonstration?
The very first demonstration was on a Sunday. We left New Pilgrim Baptist Church, and we were going to the city jail. And when we got down by the jail, they had the hoses there, but for some reason the water wouldn't come out of the hoses. You know, they attempted to cut them on, but I guess it was God. But no water came out. And we knelt, you know, and prayed, and everybody was, you know, together, you know, and that was the first time that I had attended a demonstration.
What was that like? In the first time, were you frightened?
I was sort of afraid, but because there were so many others around you, then you know, you just fell into the movement, you know. And being young, you know, you don't really have a whole lot of fear, you know, you just felt that it was something you had to do.
Right.
You know.
Now, you at that point were freshmen at Miles.
Right.
Were there other demonstrations that you participated in?
None that I can remember. I remember going to a lot of meetings, but I just remember 2 demonstrations actually.
Okay. What was the other one?
The other one was at 16th Street, the day that they asked all the students to, you know, participate, and that was the time that I was arrested.
What were the circumstances of before we get to the circumstances of your arrest, tell me about that day. How did that day evolve? Did you go to school that day?
No, I left home going to school. And my girlfriend said, "Oh, let's go join the demonstrations." I said, and my mom had said, "Cealie, don't go down there and get in jail. Don't go down there and get in trouble." And I had said, "Oh, Mother, I'm not going to do that, you know." And, I mean, this is all leading up to the time, you know. Every week when I would go to the movement, and she was fearful of, you know, of what repercussions, I guess, that could happen to me. But later on, I found she was supportive, so you know. But I guess as parents, they don't want you to get into anything that, you know, especially with protected, right? And I said, Annie, my mom said I couldn't do it. She said, "Oh, it'll be all right." So I said, "Well, okay, let's go." So we went down. We caught the bus and went down to the 16th Street Baptist Church, and they were having, you know, had a little meeting, you know, talking and everything, and they said, so we walked around for a while, you know, and then we went inside and we.
I mean, you walked around.
We walked around. We walked around the downtown area, and so she said, "Well, they're just putting water hoses on you. They aren't putting you in jail right now. They're just putting water hoses on you." I said, "Well, okay, that'll be all right." I said, "As long as they don't go to jail." And So we went inside and, got in one of the lines,
In the 16th
in
Street.
16th Street, and joined the marching. And so we marched on out, and we marched down the steps and went up to the next street. I guess that must be 15th Street.
17th Street.
Okay.
The 16th.
No, we went
Church.
we went the other way.
Yeah, the church is on 16th.
We
so
went
you're
to
going toward
15th.
down.
No, we were
You're
not.
going away from
We went
downtown.
away from downtown. We
Okay.
went down to 15th Street, and we went across the street and came back up 4th Avenue.
Oh, I see.
Fifth Avenue.
Fifth Avenue.
Fifth Avenue. Came back up Fifth Avenue to 16th Street. And as we came up that street, this bus pulled up, and we were singing, "Ain't gonna let
How
go."
many of you?
Oh, hundreds.
Is that right?
Yeah, hundreds.
And you were singing.
Right. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And so the bus pulled up, and this officer said, "Well, we don't want to turn you around, just march right on in this bus." And so we marched on in the bus, and they carried us to the city jail.
They must have more than one bus then.
Oh, they had lots of buses. Yeah.
So they had enough buses to accommodate you.
Yes.
And then they took you to the city jail in Southside?
On Southside, right.
Mhm.
And we were out in the yard all that evening. I mean, we didn't go inside, we didn't have any water, we didn't have any food, we didn't have anything. And it was exhausting, you know, and you were fearful because you didn't know what was happening, what was going to happen. And they finally let us go inside, and they carried us up into the cell block. And when we walked in the door, there was a huge room. Well, it was already full. I mean, there were hundreds of people already in there. And there was one bunk on the very front, and my girlfriend and I got it. And because we were like first in the door. And we got this bunk, and we were just tired, just exhausted. There were no mattresses, no covers, nothing, just an iron.
springs.
No springs, just a piece of iron, a slate of iron. And that's the way it was until I think that Wednesday, they were gonna have inspection. And they brought some mattresses and threw them in the door. Well, we got one of those. And my girlfriend, the bunk was maybe half of a foot wider than this table. And we slept on that together, the two of us. I mean, not a top bunk and a bottom bunk, but just one bunk. And when they fed us, the first time they carried us down to get food, I guess it was supposed to be grits. I really don't know what it was, but you just put your spoon in it, you couldn't get it out. It was awful. Yes, so we didn't eat. But they did have a canteen, you know, where you could stop and buy concessions, you know. My girlfriend and I pooled our money, and we bought candy bars and potato chips. And that's what we basically lived off of for the week.
So how long were you?
I was in there from Tuesday until Saturday.
Did your friend remain with you the entire time?
No, she didn't. She faked an illness because they had said that, you know, if you got sick, you could go home. So that Friday, she said, "I just can't take it any longer." And she said, "I'm getting out sick." So she got up and fell out, you know, supposedly. And they carried her out. I didn't see her anymore. And, you know, I was wondering, you know, my parents knew where it was, you know. And, you know, all kinds of things were going through my mind. And then after my friend left, of course, I was there by myself. There were a lot of people there, but I didn't know any of them. So it was, you know, you sort of stay to yourself, but, you know, we had prayer services and
freedom songs while you were there.
we did, and we had chapel, and that Wednesday, they had fried chicken, and mashed potatoes. That was the only decent meal they had. They were having an inspection of some kind, I guess the state or somebody was coming to check to see how we were being treated. That's the only meal I ate the whole time I was there.
So every other day, it was not that way. So
Oh, no.
food was not.
Palatable at all. It was awful. The breakfast, everything, lunch, the dinner, everything was just,
Well, how did you get out?
just a dismissal of everybody. And, they had started, letting people out like that Friday. And then they told us, well, somebody, the word got around the cell block that if you don't get out by Saturday, you have to stay until Monday. And I'm saying, oh, I can't stay here, and I said, how am I gonna do it? But I just could not fake the illness. I just, it's just not in my nature. I said, I'm not good, I just couldn't do that. And I said, well, maybe, I'll be one for one. So they kept calling and late that Saturday night, they finally called me and I went down and they fingerprinted me and took my picture. And what that picture looked like, that mean,
After
for 5 days, right?
Yes.
So I went out, when I got outside, my dad was waiting for me. And I tell you, I have never been happy to see anybody in my life.
What did he say?
He just hugged me and he was glad to see me. And they never said, why did you do it? They just never, they were just so overjoyed to see me.
Did you ever talk about it with them, your experiences?
I talked about the experience with them.
After you came out?
And they were supportive, they could understand why, and that it was for a great cause, When you are always at the back, you can't do the kinds of things that you want to do, the kinds of freedoms that children enjoy today. We just have them.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time after, when we were able to ride the bus and sit in where you want to sit. I mean, that was a great experience, it really was. And to know that you probably had some part in it, helping to have that come about. But we talked about it, and like I said, they were very supportive. The thing that I remember, the day that the Saturday that I got out was the day that they had bombed A.D. King's house. And I had a friend who lived in Inslee, and he had called me to see if, I was out, and he told me that, hey, they just bombed A.D. King's house. And he lived around the corner from the church, home, parsonage. And everybody was all excited about that.
You were here when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed.
Oh, yes.
What do you remember about that?
It was very tragic. It was unbelievable. It really was. Mr. McNair had been the director of the center at Lovins Village, and he had worked closely with the children there. So I knew him, and he seems like I can remember him delivering milk.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And he was our milkman. And I mean, that was just so tragic, man. It was just hard to believe. Just really, really hard to believe. And I was very devastated about it.
How did your participation in the movement impact upon your schooling? Because you were out of school for a week.
It didn't.
Didn't happen.
You didn't know what that, And I submitted an excuse, and have a reason, and it did not, I just made up whatever I missed at that time.
Did you continue to be involved after you went back to school, after you were released from jail?
Yeah, I would attend some of the sessions, right? But I don't think I was as active as before, I had vowed I would never go back to jail.
That was an experience that you wanted
No.
to do.
And then shortly after then, it sort of waned off in Birmingham, I think.
Right. What was it like? You know, many people ask the question of those of us who are from the South, growing up in Birmingham. What was it like growing up in a city of such tightly controlled social strata?
Well, you feared the police. You didn't want to get involved in anything that would cause you because you didn't have any rights. You had to watch where you sat. Where you went, and my family, we were sort of close knit. Where I didn't do a lot. I remember going downtown, like to the movies or something like that. But basically, that was about all you could do. You could go to the Carver Theater or the famous theater, places like that. If you went downtown to eat, you had a side for, blacks and a side for whites. If you went in Newberry's, you could stand there forever, and they'd wait on you when they wanted to, when you couldn't sit there and eat, you could come and pay your money and get what you wanted, but you could not sit there and eat, and it was degrading. It made you feel inferior, and what Woolworths was about the same, so it made you feel that you were an inferior person.
Did that have anything to do with your eventually getting involved in the movement?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I felt that, there had to be a change, for me and my people, there had to be a change. And if that was the way to do it, then that was, hey, I was all for it, and that really influenced, because that was, like I said, you didn't have any rights. You couldn't, there were no places to really go, and if you did go, then you were made to feel inferior.
Where did you get your degree in?
In elementary education.
At Miles.
At Miles. Right.
And what did you do after you finished?
I taught school for, I taught for 28 years.
Okay. Here in the Birmingham system?
Right. I started the year after I graduated from college, and my first school was at Kingston, and I taught 4th grade. Mrs. West was the principal, and it was an enjoyable experience. Then I taught 7th grade there, because I could teach like the whole, K through 8 at that time.
Right.
And I left Kingston and I went to Avondale. And I stayed there, I believe, about 3 years. And at that time, that's when they integrated the schools. And
You were one of the first teachers at
Right.
Avondale?
right,
What was that experience like?
it was different, and you knew, basically you were like a token, they had to do it. And
How were you treated by both the faculty and the students?
some of the students were hostile. There were a lot of white students there, and some of them were hostile, some of them were respectful, and you had a cluster of families, that little area who were basically sort of rednecks, but then others, were accepting.
Do you remember any specific incidents that you may have had, that others may have had in those initial days?
No, I really don't. Like I said, it was not, let's see who was the principal at that time. I believe Homer Wesley was the principal. And I was kind of self-assured, I just went in, I did my job, and
Was the principal black or white?
he was white. But he tried to make it, easy, you know. He
How long-
wasn't. And from my understanding, he was from, one of the southern, counties before he came to Birmingham. But, like I said, he was not, I think he tried to follow, the guidelines, and I think basically, that made it.
How many black teachers were there at the time?
I think about 7 or 8.
And was that the first, this is not when you initially integrated then, this is after that and there had.
It was in, let's see, started teaching in 68, 68, and, so it had to be about 70.
70. Okay. So there had been a couple of years, there were some other teachers there prior to your
Yeah.
arrival.
Mhm.
So the atmosphere
Yeah,
was
yeah.
not as hostile as it
Right,
was.
right. Like I said, we just had like clusters of families that, you know, were problems, but, and the teachers were basically accepting. I had one, teacher who was, Mrs. Davis at that time, and she was white, and she was across the hall from me, and, we got along very well. There were, the rooms were huge. There were large rooms, and I maybe that on that 3rd floor there were, maybe 8 or 10 classes. And maybe out of that 8 or 10 classes, three of them were black.
Yeah, what grade did you teach in?
I taught the 4th grade. So I stayed there for, I think it was 2 years.
And you moved from Avondale to what school?
I moved from Avondale to Raleigh.
Oh, but that's back into a
Black.
black
Mhm.
situation.
And then I got my master's and stayed at Raleigh 1 year. And I got my master's, and then I went to Author. And I stayed there 5 years. And it was like the open concept school where, you know, everything's open.
How did you see teaching when you first started versus teaching when you retired? Were there many differences in the operation of the schools or children?
Oh, yeah, a lot of differences in, when I was at Kingston, the children were poor, but they respected teachers, you know, they accepted the teacher's role, you know, the parents were very supportive. But as time has gone on, the parents are less supportive of teachers, you know, they don't give the teachers the support that they need.
Why do you think that's the case?
I really don't know. I think it has to do with how people have their attitudes change, how they're I really don't know, but I think it has to do with attitude, you know, how they just don't have any, they don't value education, you know, I left Author and I went to Epic, and the atmosphere there was a bit different. I mean, I really can't say about how I ended up, because I was in a whole different situation.
Yeah, what's the difference in Alpha and Epic?
Author
In terms of makeup?
in makeup, at Author, it was predominantly white. There might have been one black child in class in each year, you know. But at Epic, it was about 50-50, black and white, the ratios. And the teachers, of course, were about 50-50 black and white.
But what was the the attitude, the differences in attitudes of parents at Epic and at Arthur to the
Oh,
process?
the people at, the parents at Arthur were, towards me, they just, they accepted me, but they didn't particularly care, They accepted me because I was in that role, but they particularly didn't care one way or the other, At Epic, the parents were more accepting. Because I think they have the attitude, they were more towards integration, because they knew that when they came to Epic, that they were gonna have, a black teacher one year, a white teacher the next year, and this is something this was their choice. So that was a difference in attitude there, And when they had to stand in line, or camp out over the weekend to get their children in there, and they want the best for their children, and they felt that they were getting it. And at Arthur, of course, it was a good school. I have no complaints about it. It was a good school. It's out in Roebuck.
If you had the opportunity to go back to those days of the movement, and you could take some of the students that you've had over time with you, would you suggest that they get involved in the struggle as you were at the time?
Yes, I would. I think it took that more than the adults to get things moving. I think the children, seeing those children being doused with hoses and being put in jail, I think that really was the turning point in the movement. I really did. And I would, and as I taught my classes, I would tell them about the movement, especially during the Black History Month or Martin Luther King's birthday, or, those.
How would they receive your stories?
Oh, they were astounded. Yeah, they really were. I had a coworker who was white, who at Epic, and every year she would have me to go all around the building telling that story. After she found out about it, because I happened to have been telling my class about it, and she, Epic is kind of open too, so she was standing there and she said, "I didn't know that." She said, "One day I was downtown at one of the department stores, and they were demonstrating." She said, "You could have been in there." I didn't, and but they were, because we sort of talked it up, all the teachers basically at Epic. Well, I say the ones in my area. I can't say all of them, but the ones in my area. We have like little clusters, and we would, that was one of our units that we did. We would read the book on Martin Luther King, and we would talk about what those terms of segregation, and the children would be astounded. They would just be amazed that this kind of thing happened,
Right.
So I think
They could hardly believe
right.
things that you were telling.
Really. Mm-hmm. And when somebody has lived it, it really brings it home.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of territory. Is there anything else that you would like to share at this point?
Well,
about those days, about growing up in Birmingham.
Nothing except that if I had to do it all over again, I would do it.
Would you change anything? Would you do anything differently?
If the circumstances were different, that's the only thing. I would have wanted the circumstances to be different, but I think it would have made me a different person. I think because of how I grew up, the values that were instilled. I think sometimes when you have it a little bit more difficult, it makes you a stronger person. If you have it too easy, sometimes it's just not always good. So if I could if I could change anything, I would take some of these children back and let them see, you know, the kinds of things that they're enjoying. You know, a lot of people have to struggle to get them, and to appreciate them and to build on them, you know, to go forward and not backwards. You know. That would
Ms. Davis, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. You've been really great, and this has been very helpful.
Well, I hope it was, and I enjoyed doing it. Thank you.